Hello, I'm in Rome in spite of appearances. Happy to see you all. All right, here we are again. Hello, Jeff. Hello, sweetheart. Hello, everybody. Hello,
Venerable.
Welcome, Venerable, in Rome.
Hello.
Ciao.
Okay, darling people, here I am in Rome, having a nice time in Rome. I haven't been to Rome much, but I like Rome. I'm a big city girl, and so it suits my nature. I love it. People, there's a demonstration this morning too. It was a very colorful demonstration. More than most demonstrations, have these blue and red balloons. And most of the unions, it seems, are because of Mr. Duggery, their prime minister, I think, some new rules about pensions and something. So the very big demonstration. And another thing I saw, a little group down the road, when they graduate here from college, they wear these lovely crowns and they get thrown, and some people were sort of boys and girls, these lovely floral crowns. They're very nice, very nice. And I met a very good dentist here. Because I travel all over the world, you see. I have my favorite chiropractor in Paris, my dentist now it's in Rome, my acupuncturist in Singapore. I have a little list in my head of my favorite people. I'm very fortunate. So I have to keep traveling, you see, to go to all these health people. Okay, I'm rabbiting on about nothing. I'm here. So let's continue talking in this topic. Go on then, Tara, you do your thing.
Yes, we'll do a short mandala offering.
Okay, so we remember the meaning. There's always meaning. If there's no meaning to anything, then you're stupid to do it, aren't you? And this is the thing about rituals. You know, we all kind of go on, well, it's just a ritual. But think about a ritual. I have to say this first. I'm in a chatty mode today. You listen to this. You know, let's say you meet a Tibetan who has never met a Western person and you poke your hand at them. You stick your hand out and smile. They'll wonder what the hell you're doing. He'll look at your hand very confused, you know, and you'll grab it and you'll hold it very firmly and shake it up and down. I mean, is that not a ritual? But you see, but we forget everything we do with our body and speech. You think about this, everything we do, walk, eat, go to the toilet, they're all rituals. They're all things we've learned, but we know they have meaning. But as soon as it's one we don't think the meaning of, we think it's a stupid, you know. Well, everything, if it doesn't have meaning, it's stupid, I agree. So if there's anything you learn from Buddhism, anything that doesn't have a purpose, that doesn't have a meaning, that doesn't help you develop your mind, it is stupid. You chuck it out and you give it right back to Buddha, all right? So you're the boss about this, to analyze carefully. So this is a ritual. We're saying some words and we're doing a little mudra like this. Tibetans have their gang, all my gangster friends in prison have all their mudras. It's like a mudra, okay? And it's representing the universe. Mount Meru is in the middle and the four continents, all the four corners. Of course, that really does sound weird, but that's Tibetan Buddhist cosmology, Buddhist cosmology. So you're visualizing all the marvelous things of the world, piling them all up and imagining offering to the Buddha as a request. I mean, it's the most marvelous meaning, you know? So we think like that. I mean, the teachings that come out of my stupid mouth, we imagine offering to the Buddha, requesting, so get some blessings with that thought. That's what we're doing when we do our little wee ritual of offering a mandala. Okay, Tara, go for it. All right.
Sashipati Jushemeto Tamri Ravrinji Nihidegyan Padi Sange Shindu Meche Holvagi Dokunanda Shinda Japakshu Jetsun Lama Dampa Kienam Keche Kitala Kense Jutintri Jita Sampe Duje Sin Mala Sabye Cheki Japa Baptu So Idam Gururatna Mandala Kamya Chayami.
So imagine Buddha very happily has received our offering. So now this one, which I will lead, it's always the same every time. Set our motivation, the last two lines, and the first two lines reiterating our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings. So the motivation, we mightn't say that, what's your motivation for doing something, but we might say, what's your goal, what's your purpose? It's the same meaning. Well, our purpose, let's think of the most altruistic thing to think, make this our purpose, as it says, you know, by the virtuous karmic seeds of listening to this Dharma, this action of listening to the Dharma. May I become a Buddha eventually, no matter how long it takes, so I can be of benefit to all the suffering sentient beings. That's the plan, okay? Sangye charang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye dropa shok sangye charang soke chognam la jancho baru dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye dropa shok Sangye charang soke chognam la jangcho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chonyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is it's a tricky business, this guru devotion one, it really is. It's it seems very kind of mystical, and it seems quite hard to understand the logic of it. So let's see if we can unpack the ideas behind it, you know. So first of all, the word Buddha, remind ourselves, when the word Buddha, the Sanskrit word Buddha, what it's actually referring to, the actual Buddha is what they call in Sanskrit the Dharmakaya. It technically means the truth body. What it's referring to is the enlightened mind. So remember, mind or consciousness is not physical for the Buddha. It's fundamental. And now think about this. In general, if there's something that's not physical, well, it can't be confined by space, time, matter, can it? It seems rather abstract, but think about that. Well, so this mind, you know, you see, in Christianity and other religions, we talk about a thing called a soul. So that's something also that's not physical, isn't it? And then we think, well, the other option is you're materialist, and so you believe in a brain. I mean, roughly speaking. But Buddha's kind of got like this third option. That's the way I put it. And he doesn't talk about a soul. He talks about mind or consciousness. And for him, as we know very well, those words refer to our cognition. And mind has got conceptuality, mind has sensory function, but mind also, as we all know from Buddhism, has these subtler levels of cognition, beyond conceptual and beyond sensory, but all of them are not physical. This is the Buddha's point. And if you take the Vajrayana model, it's very helpful, I find, very helpful. That consciousness, we do have physical energy, but the fundamental physical energy of the universe is actually the four elements. I mean, you know, we talked about that. We talked like that a few, 1,000 years ago in our culture, in the West, in European culture, with Mr. Galileo and that mob, isn't it? But now we don't talk like that. We talk about other, like all the other thousands of chemicals and atoms and things in science. But this is still the Buddha's view. All physical matter is made of the four elements, the entire universe, the physical world. And what's fascinating, and this is the Vajrayana, as His Holiness Dalai Lama says, all minds, there are billions and billions and billions and billions of mind possessors, consciousnesses, beginningless and endless, pervading the universe, never any new and never any gone, because they're beginningless and endless. So all these consciousnesses are inextricably linked to their own set of the four elements. This is the Vajrayana. It's just how it is, okay? So when that consciousness, let's say for us in our case, we've got a human body. So we've got our mind, and then due to past karma, our mind ran like a magnet to our present mummy's human womb, where it joined the egg and sperm of two humans, mummy and daddy. And so now our four elements now are manifesting as this physical body, right? Well, there's about the lion. There's a lion. Their four elements are manifesting as in that way. Then you've got spirits. They've got also the subtle. They've also got physical energy, but their elements are manifesting as like air. That's why we can't see them. The hell beings, you could argue, their four elements are predominantly fire. And their minds are conjoined inextricably with their bodies of fire, I mean, think like this. The gods, their minds are, due to their virtue, they're born as a god, which is a very happy, blissful state. Their four elements are manifesting as light. So it's all, and they say what drives what kind of physical energy your mind conjoins with is the karma you create, you know. So when you're fully developed, so right now, mind isn't physical, but look at our mind, it's stuck in this body. The hell being's mind is stuck in those elements. And that's because of ego grasping. We've got intense attachment, intense grasping. Our mind is not physical. Our body is very physical, like a big lump of, look at it, like a lump of, it's a walking sewer, isn't it? This big heavy duty thing. No way is it a body of light. So the thing is, our mind is confined. It is confined. It's locked inside this body. We can't see past our own noses. You know, we don't remember any of the past. We see none of the future. Our mind is capable, but we exist at the very gross level of mind, which is conceptual and sensory. So as we progress spiritually, we expand our consciousness. As our mind gets less deluded and more virtuous and more wise, you literally, and eventually you get single point of concentration, shamatha in meditation. Your mind now, you've accessed the subtler levels, which can cognize the past, cognize the future. And as you continue to grow and grow and grow and eventually become a Buddha, your mind now literally is unencumbered. You know, there's no longer any junk, any delusions, and embody. And that Buddha mind is still conjoined with its own subtle level of the physical energies, the four elements, but it doesn't need a gross body. It doesn't need to take a body. So the enlightened mind, that's what referred to as the actual word Buddha refers to that enlightened mind. So naturally that mind is existing wherever there is existence. Try and conceptualize that. Wherever there is existence, that mind is there. How can it not be? Because it can't be, finally, when it's purified, confined by space or time or matter. So, you know, when I was a Catholic, I love the idea of God is everywhere. I'd think about how God is everywhere. I'd look at my homework, my homework book, you know, and I'd think God is in the margin of my homework. Then I'd look at the light switch. God is in the light switch. I could not understand, and I tried to get my hand around it. But as Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe both say, this idea of Buddha, unmanifest, infinitely compassionate, infinitely wise, infinitely powerful, unmanifest, infinitely pervasive consciousness is everywhere. And indeed, there is only one of those. There's only one Dharma. It's just like the Christian teachings. The difference is, of course, Buddhists doesn't call Buddha a creator, and they did have a beginning. You know, there's many different interpretations. So it's a very similar idea, you know. So Buddha's mind is wherever there is existence. It can't not be. So get your head around this. It's kind of, that's called the Dharmakaya. It's called the truth body. Now, out of compassion, I mean, from eons of hard work, that person's become a Buddha, but they're not going to sit spacing out in their bliss. You know, it's what drove them to become a Buddha, what drove them to purify their mind and have it pervade the universe and see that which exists, and had infinite compassion for every being and infinite power to do what needs to be done. Their compassion drove them to want to do that, and their wisdom enabled them. So then what are they going to do? Sit up and space out in the Dharmakaya and wait for us? No, they got to communicate with us. So what do? They manifest in bodies. So there's two kinds of bodies. One is called the Nimanakaya, the one behind me, Mr. Shakyamuni Buddha. That's called the Supreme Nimanakaya, which is the one, the Buddha of any given period in history. The next one will be Maitreya. I think we talked about this roughly, but I want to talk about it again. So then you've got any other Nimanakayas. It could be the flowers on my altar, also could be, could be a manifestation of Buddha's mind, because the Buddha's mind can conjoin with any elements anywhere, because the whole universe consists of the four elements. The hell beings, the spirit realm, the human realm, it's all the four elements. And the configuration of those four elements is the result of the karma of the sentient beings who experience those four elements. That's why we're all the creators of our own reality, as Buddha says, as His Holiness says. Karma is self-creation. So Buddha manifests as this body. So back in India, like I always say, we'd been around India looking for a guru, a person heavy with qualities. That's what it means. Lovely, lovely meaning. We all need a person heavy with qualities. You would have been looking for a guru. Now this is the point. Shakyamuni is considered to be the actually Buddha mind. But this is the point, but Buddhas don't need bodies. By definition, if you see a body, they don't need it. So this is the tricky bit. How can you know he's a Buddha? Well, you know what, honey children? You don't know. This is the part that gets kind of weird. How can you possibly know that nice, handsome Indian man in his yellow little robe I mean, when you were in India at that time, the place was crawling in sadhus. He would have looked like exactly all the other Hindu sadhus. You know, we think, oh, there's the Buddha. We think a statue, that we're so clever. You wouldn't have been able to tell back then. You would have seen this one, like all these thousands of other Indian sadhus bopping around. Boys, of course. You wouldn't have seen a girl sadhu. They would have chucked her on the fire, but never mind. The boy sadhus, okay? So you couldn't tell, you wouldn't know, there's Buddha with his halo, I can tell. No, you have no idea. So this is quite difficult. When you say, on the one hand, you say, I've got to see my guru as the Buddha, and I've got to meet a Buddha, the best guru is the Buddha. Well, how can I know who is a Buddha? Well, you can't. Why? Because our minds are too thick. We're as thick as posts, as we say in English. You know, we don't have the wisdom to see a Buddha. We literally do not have. We see everything through the lenses of our own delusions. You know, we see what we make up. There's a lovely story about Kandula, one of Rinpoche's lamas, Lama Zopa's gurus, and his disciple. They both teach each other. It's very sweet. I told you this, I think, but a couple of years ago in Kopan, when I was there, Rinpoche said, oh, she's my first lady lama. I think he got about 150 boy lamas. Now he's got a girl lama. Anyway, she's kind of said to be some amazingly realized being, you know, sort of born completely fully developed as Vajrayogini, Lama Zopa says. So when she was a very little girl, she, I'm sure I've told all these stories, but never mind, I'll tell you again. They're nice to hear. She came from Tibet over the mountains on her own. She was desperate to meet His Holiness, and she wanted to offer a long life puja, this complicated kind of big event, you know. But of course, who's going to pay attention to some little Tibetan girl? And the thing was, because she was highly realized being, because she had wisdom, when she saw His Holiness driving by the car down the streets of Dharamsala, people would all wave, she would faint, because she could see the Buddha, she could see him, she could see in this Sambhogakaya form. I'll go back to this in a minute. That's the subtle light body in Tantra. So she fainted with bliss, you know. So they thought she was just some wacky little girl. And she was desperate to see His Holiness, though she eventually met Kirti Sanchab Rinpoche, one of the lamas, he, of course, being clairvoyant, could see who she was. I'm sure I told you this. And he said, she was desperate to get to His Holiness. I will build a golden bridge between you and His Holiness, he told her. Anyway, so the thing is, when you see her, she's this cute looking girl, you know, woman, excuse me, cute looking. But just to be a yogini doesn't mean you have to be cute looking, because we just like to see what we think, you know. There's one of my friends who seems incredibly realized. She's one of our famous nuns. If you look at her, she looks like a bag lady. She almost needs another cushion for her big plastic bag of bottles and things. And she seems quite neurotic. She seems to fight with everybody. She's kind of like, she does not look like what you think is a kind of a cute dakini. Well, Lama Zopa, when I was editing Mandala, he would send letters. I'm convinced I tell all these stories all the time, but I forget to whom, because you all look the same on Zoom. I can't tell whether you're Zurich or Sydney, you know, but so forgive me. I mean, I remember sometimes. So anyway, this nun, Rinpoche, she was in retreat for several years in Rinpoche's center in Big Sur, up in the mountains. Rinpoche said even the birds are quiet. It's this perfect place for retreat. So she was there for several years, and she's been meditating all of her life, apparently. So anyway, Rinpoche sent me this letter from her to publish in Mandala, but you know, anonymously. And I read that letter and I was absolutely astonished. She had high realization, extraordinary realizations. But when you see her, she looks like a bag lady. So we can't tell who anybody is, but that includes a Buddha. Of course we can't, because we're not realized. We don't have the wisdom. So then the tricky part is, if you can't see who is a Buddha, if you can't prove who is a Buddha, then we say, well, how am I supposed to believe they're the Buddha? It's like catch-22. So it is a bit tricky, but we've got to understand the logic of it. Okay, so first of all, there's the Dharmakaya, the actual Buddha. Then you go down, it's like a family tree. You go to the Rupakaya, which is called the form body. And then there are two of those, the Nirmanakaya, this one, and the Sambhogakaya, or enjoyment body. And that's all the tantric aspects. So there's all those deities, so-called deities, you know, that's in Tantra. Like the one behind Tara, there's Tara behind Tara, the green lady, and then you've got Chen Raising, you've got wrathful ones and peaceful ones. And there are all these manifestations of different psychological qualities that you either want to purify or that you want to develop, you know. So then that's the Sambhogakaya. And that's the form that this Kandala, she can see the Dalai Lama in that form, you know, as in his like body. So, okay, They talk about, if you've read the teachings in your course notes, you'll hear all the different very traditional ways they present to develop the view in order to develop the view that's called seeing your guru as the Buddha. So the first thing we'll say to ourselves is, well, if I can't recognize a Buddha, how can I possibly prove he is the Buddha? Well, you know, it's difficult because you can't. So what are we going to do with that? Well, okay. So Pabonka Rinpoche says, if the guru is not the Buddha, then who is? So that gets us really kind of more confused. So let's look at that meaning. Okay. So let's okay, so let's just think you want to play tennis, okay? And now I'm finally speaking to Swiss people, so I can talk about Federer. I asked the Italians if they got a tennis, and they haven't got one. They've got, then the French, they had one once, I think. So if Mr. Federer, okay? So if you want to play tennis, think about this. You want a really ideal tennis player, don't you? You want the best tennis player. It's obvious. So let's just say you have the archetype of a tennis player, and you had to do a drawing or make a painting of a perfect tennis player with all the qualities of the best tennis player, which is the coach that you want, isn't it? So you would do a drawing, and you have exactly the right shape arms, you have the right shape neck, you'd have exactly the right way he holds the tennis racket. You could do this ideal picture of a tennis player. Well, that's what the deities are, especially in Tantra, or even this one, the Narayanakara as well, that when they draw them or make the statue, you learn very specific, they've got like, there's 80 different qualities and 50 this, and I mean, every tiny stroke in those paintings, every tiny part of the statue, it's like painting a picture of an ideal person, in this case, not tennis player, but Buddha. So you draw an ideal picture of a Buddha. Perfect. So then what you got to do is find a human being who matches that, isn't it? So you walk around and you check up, you see Serena and you see Roger, and you finally decide they're the one for me. You know, you see that they tick the boxes. They've got all the right muscles, the right shape, the right instructions, everything. You tick the boxes and you decide, there's my guru, tennis guru. There's my tennis guru. He fits the definition. There's my tennis guru. She fits the definition. So that's how you find the guru. Then, because you're not clairvoyant, you then have to, you do the choosing of the guru. You go checking. You do your market research. You do your due diligence. You check up. You got this picture in your mind of an ideal Buddha, and there are many, many qualities, just like the tennis player. And you're going around checking all the tennis players. Oh yeah, oh, she's the one. Look at that. She fits perfectly. So what you do is you get your perfect picture and you stick Serena's face on it. You stick Roger's face on it. And then you now listen, you commit to that person, you decide that you decide they're your tennis guru, you decide they're the one, and you now train your mind. Once you've asked them, they've accepted you, you shake hands on it. I mean, you know, Tibetans wouldn't shake hands, you'd bonk the head, they bonk heads. You'd bonk his head. Lama Yeshe would bonk your head. Lama Yeshe bonked my head when I asked him to be my guru. So in a sense, we shook hands. So then, of course, because I chose him, I did my due diligence, I checked up on all the tennis players, and I stuck Lama Yeshe's face on my picture. He became my guru. And then you know what? Then you make him your guru. There's no other way, because you can't prove. You cannot prove. You can look at their qualities. You must do that. And then you agree in your mind, you realize this person is the one that I want to show me how to become Buddha. So I use them as my archetype, don't I? I use them as my example. So that means everything Lama Yeshe, and Lama Zopa in my case, Lama Yeshe first, everything Lama Yeshe said, by definition, had to be words that were helping me see my mind, helping me become a Buddha. Everything he did, his behavior, his actions, his teachings had to be. That's if I chose Federer, then every single thing Federer did on the tennis court had to be the correct instruction. Because if I then choose Federer, decide he's the guy, and then he says, put your hand this way, Rabina, and I go, what do you mean this way? Why not that way? Well, why'd you bother choosing him if you're not going to listen to him, you know? That's why for me, it's so important to think that you choose your guru. They don't come and jump on top of you and force you by the throat of your neck and say, I'm your guru. No, you choose. I'm nothing that in anything. I think of like Mr. Lee, my Kung Fu teacher. Imagine that I met Mr. Lee, say a couple of weeks before I decided he was my Kung Fu teacher. Let's say I didn't even hear about Kung Fu, but Mr. Lee met me somewhere and he could see I had potential with Kung Fu. Let's say he saw me. So imagine if he says, you're going to learn Kung Fu, Ruby, and he grabs me by my throat and drags me off to Kung Fu classes. I mean, you'd sue the man. He had to wait until I went to his classes. He had to wait until I saw him do Kung Fu. He had to wait until I was ready, and then I would ask him. It's the same with, I told you about my mother. I find that a great example. My mother, since I was born, was a good cake maker. She was heavy with qualities of cake making. But me, little arrogant little me, didn't want to know about boring old cooking or cleaning dishes or anything else in the household. And I had no interest in making a cake until I was 26. I always use that example. And then one day the thought arose in my mind, I want to make a cake. And I happened to be going back to Australia. So I decided I'd ask my mother, because I'd done my due diligence. I hadn't thought of it like that. I checked on her cakes. I checked on her qualities. I checked on her peers, her reputation. I checked on her disciples, my sisters. I'd eaten their cakes. So I had done my due diligence. My mother was qualified, but finally I was ready to ask her. Like I said, she must have burst into tears, waiting 25 years for me to want to make a cake. She couldn't force me. You can bring a horse to water. You can't make them drink. So you need to be ready and you need to want it, and you do your research and then you check, then you ask. And now the hard work starts. I promise. Like Lama Zopa, I told this example, I think. I'm not sure if I did. But it took me about 8 or 10 years to recognize Lama Zopa as my guru. He's one of my root gurus along with Lama Yeshe. I did tell you, do you remember I told you that story? I had a dream during my retreat. A year after I became a nun, as far as I was concerned, Lama Yeshe was my guru. And then I became a nun. And then I did a retreat. And at the end of the retreat, I think I did tell you this. And then Nick Rebush, who was then doing wisdom publications at Copan, he said, Lama moved us to England. This is in 1978. Lama moved us all to England. And he told me, is there a bean I should go to England? No, what am I telling you? It's confusing. Another wrong story. I had a dream. That's right, during my retreat. As far as I was concerned, Lama Yeshe was my guru. I had this dream during this retreat before I went. It was 1978, my first retreat. And I had this dream, a very vivid dream. And it was Lama Zopa in the dream with a whole group of students. And we're in this group and we're in Nalanda Monastery, ruins. I only recognized it years later when I went there. Whole bunch of students. And Lama Zopa called me out. And he put one of these long, his texts over one shoulder of my shoulder. He put his robe over my other shoulder. And he said to follow him out. Well, it was a nice dream. And I told this Lama friend in Dharamsala. He said, oh, that's the Lama who'll lead you to enlightenment. Well, it took me 1987. It took me 10 years for the penny to drop. So in that period, it was really like this. In that period, Lama Yeshe would whack me around. And I mean, he was my teacher. I asked him. So I gave him permission to show me my mind. Lama Zopa, I hadn't given him permission. He knew all the time he was my ridiculous guru. He knew. But I was as thick as a post. I didn't recognize. So he left me alone. He'd crack a joke. How are you? Just very friendly and easygoing, So it took me 10 years to wake up, to realize. And from the second that it was clear for me, he then told me what to do. I'm just telling you stories. I'm sure I've told you all this before. I'm very sorry. I can't think of better things to say. So then the hard work starts. I mean, in other words, Mr. Lee, if I'd met him, my Kung Fu teacher, before I was ready for Kung Fu, he wouldn't have been shouting at me and telling me, oh, now, he just was my friend. But then when I wanted his Kung Fu, we did this relationship. I shook his hand. And then I turned up at every damn class. I think I told that too. Me and this Chinese boy of 14 and another boy of 19. I was this old Buddhist nun, 42 years old. We were like the Three Musketeers. We'd go to all his classes. We'd traipse around London following Mr. Lee. We'd go to Chinatown and watch the Kung Fu movies and eat chips at McDonald's afterwards, with these three little musketeers, the three main disciples. He pushed me to the limit. He would scream at me. We would do our 30th push-up on our knuckles. It's only your body. And he would scream at me. But I was honored. I wasn't mine. He knew I wanted his Kung Fu. It's not stupid. I turned up 6 days a week. Obviously, I wanted his kung fu, so he pushed me. And that's what, if you're really sincere, that's what you want your teacher to do. Because Lama Yeshe was the same for me. The minute I told him, when I first met him, I always mention this, that I didn't know you're supposed to ask. I informed him he was my guru. Yes, I know, dear. But from that second, the teaching started. From that second, from a gentle little word, I got a shock, I saw my mind. That's their job, to show you your damn mind. That's what you're trying to do as a Buddhist. So, for me, this is how I can only talk like this about the guru. I can't, all those things in Pabonka Rinpoche, you go to hell for 4 million years if you do the wrong thing. I can't talk like that, okay? You can read all the teachings in the Lamrim. So then the difficulty is you can't, by definition, see who is a Buddha because you're not realized. But it's the same with anything. This is a really good example. It's not mystical. How would I know that Mr. Lee was good at Kung Fu if I didn't know any Kung Fu? It's the same with my mother making cakes. It's not really just because it's Dharma. If I know nothing about cake making, I would never know that my mother was qualified if I hadn't done any research. That's why you have to do your due diligence, because you don't have experiential knowledge. The same with Mr. Lee. I had no experiential knowledge. If I had no experiential knowledge, all I can do is check on his reputation, check on his students, check on how he is and his behavior, because you only have intellectual knowledge. So it's logical that you have to check first. It's logical you have to check up, and then you have confidence, then you request, then the work starts. And this is the thing too, when we think of having a guru, you sort of, and like Mr. Lee, for example, it's reasonable to go to Mr. Lee's class. So you want Mr. Lee in front of you, showing you how to do Kung Fu. But here, it's a bit more abstract, a bit more subtle, It's marvelous if you do meet your Lama in person. But the real work of cultivating this relationship is totally done by us. We think of a relationship, you think two people have to do the job, like a boyfriend and girlfriend. You both got to do your bit. No, if the Lama's already Buddha, which you are having faith in, your job is to open up to their advice. Your job is to develop devotion. And this is what's done, especially in Tantra, in all the different practices, where you cultivate, you do your Tara practice, you visualize Tara out there, and then you visualize a Tara, that Sambhogakaya form is the manifestation of your Lama's mind. That's the ideal one, the idealized version, and you stick your Lama's face on it. There's this beautiful statue, of Vajrasattva that Lama Zopa commissioned at our in Tushita Dharamsala, our center in Dharamsala, where since 1971, every year there's a 3-month Vajrasattva retreat that people come to from around the world, and there's a special gompa just for that. And Lama Zopa commissioned, like 30 years ago, I think he commissioned an artist to do a statue of Vajrasattva in union with his consort, with Lama Yeshe's face. It's so shocking because Lama Yeshe's a monk, and suddenly he's got this cute girlfriend, it's shocking to the mind. But Lama Zopa is so kind because he wants to try and help us to remember that the Guru is the Buddha. This is one of the hardest ones for us. We have this fantasy idea what we think a Buddha is, We have a fantasy idea, usually very sweet with a halo and always be gentle and nice. Well, no, especially in Tantra, because these beings are completely qualified, have no delusion, so they're able to use any methods possible to help our minds. So the peaceful methods are the best, but for the thick-headed ones, the Guru has to manifest wrathfully. But it's like we don't like that. We don't like that. We love to read stories about Milarepa being beaten up by Mapa, and he had to build this kind of tower like 9 times, and he kept being chucked out of the teachings. We love to read stories like that, but if even your Lama blinks at you wrong, you practically want to sue him for abuse. We're so fragile. So it's a heavy duty thing. So if you're not ready with at least some semblance of understanding of the logic of the teachings, of how it's possible that there can be such a person as a Buddha, which means beyond ego, beyond delusions, and that it's possible, therefore, for them, because they only want you to become a Buddha too, because you've given them that job to do, that they are able to manifest in whatever form that is going to help you become a Buddha. Like I said, Mr. Lee would scream at me. Now, I'm not saying he's a Buddha, that's not discussion here, but he's like heavy with qualities of Kung Fu. That's his expertise. He might have been a lousy cook. He might have been very deluded in other ways. I don't care. I wanted his Kung Fu. So he shouted at me. I was honored. I was honored that he shouted because I knew he knew I wanted his Kung Fu, and that was his method for helping me. So you had to have that kind of understanding. I mean, one time, I mean, so many stories I can say, so many stories. One time with Lama Zopa, you know, I was in France actually, where I'm heading off very soon. If the borders are open, suddenly I'm realizing they're starting to get paranoid now about all these diseases coming. Anyway, so I remember in France, I was at the center there, and I wanted to have a quick word with Rinpoche, and Annette, the nun, she took me to the room, and Rinpoche was inside. Annette went inside, said, Rinpoche, Rabina's out, wants a quick word. Rinpoche ignored. She said it 4 times. Rinpoche ignored her. So she came out again and shrugged her shoulders. Now, if I'd been a bit sensitive and needy and attached, get all offended, oh, Lama Zopa doesn't care about me, boo-hoo. No, it was a teaching for my mind. Okay, obviously I didn't need to talk to him. I trust Lama Zopa's wisdom. Thanks, Rinpoche. Egg on my face. This is a baby example, you know. So I'm saying a few things here, just the things that I find helpful, please. So I think I need you to really ask me some questions, because there's been me quite, I mean, these days you hear about bad gurus who jump on their students or beat them or do terrible things, and people get very distressed, and it is quite a difficult topic. So really start asking me questions, please. I want to have questions, especially if you've heard things about gurus and blah, 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 blah. It's important we try and get the right view, okay? So ask me questions, darling people. And I've got, where's my drink? Okay. I'm sorry, while you're thinking about your questions, I'm going to go get some hot water. I wasn't quite ready for the class. I'll be 2 seconds, okay?
You can feel free to type the question if you'd like also in the chat box. Okay, Julie, we got you.
Okay, questions?
We have one question in the chat. Well,
Good.
now 2. The first question is from Julie. She is asking, what's the difference between a guru and a teacher? What's the difference?
There's not. I mean, there's not. We use the word teacher in our culture is a very general word. You know, you've got your mathematics teacher and your tennis teacher and so on and so forth. The term guru is usually used in India, in India, referring to a spiritual teacher. That's really the point. So spiritual teacher, or even, you know, I looked up the definition of the term in English, mentor, and it's a very nice term. It's quite a good word, actually. It's a good equivalent, mentor. We use that very commonly in our culture. I mean, it's not used uniquely, clearly not for spiritual, but I'll just look at the definition. It's quite nice. An experienced, listen to this, an experienced and trusted advisor. That's a lovely definition. So here we're talking spiritual. So there tends to be in the West this idea there's kind of like a hierarchy of gurus. The guru is at the top, and then somehow teachers down below. But if you really look at the meaning of it, if you've decided very consciously that a person is your spiritual teacher. I mean, this is the difference. You go to a teacher and they say, oh, I had a class with a teacher today. That's kind of generic teacher, but to become your teacher, that is you choosing. So it's a very specific decision you make, having done your checking. So that will be your spiritual teacher, your spiritual mentor. And the lama is the Tibetan equivalent of the word guru. Okay, who else?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Claudia, would you like to ask? Or we have Claudia has a question.
Good, darling, talk to me.
or I'll go ahead and read it. If LZR, Lama Zopa is my guru, can you, Venerable Rabina, be my guru too?
We can have as many gurus as we like. We're the boss. And again,
Easy.
I mean, again, the word, I mean, there's often, in the West, there's often this rather naive assumption that if you know, you meet a Tibetan monk, you assume that means a lama. No, you have to decide who your lama is. Your lama could be some ugly little cross-eyed American man who nobody else knows anything about. That could be your guru. Or it could be the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, like the top guru, you know. So anybody, you choose. It can be male, female, layperson, monk, nun, whatever you like. You decide. You check up, you check on their reputation, and you check and then you request. Yes, Sanyo.
Seeing your guru as the Buddha, is there an analogy from a non-dharma that is similar to that? Like,
yes, you see Federer as the best tennis player on the planet. Yes, exactly. That's exactly the point. In other words, this is the point, Samuel. It's a good question. Thank you. And it works well with the non-dharma one. So let's say you've decided Federer is the guy for you. He's the best one. You've checked up, you've compared him with what you've read about. He seems to tick all the boxes for being a qualified tennis guru, using that word like that. Do you understand? So far, so good. So now then let's think about what you would then do with that relationship. You would request him to teach you tennis. And now this is the point. Just like my mother, I use the example of cooking. If I'd done my due diligence, I checked up, my mother was qualified, I was confident she knew what she was talking about. She fit, she fit the definition. Then my job is to listen to her instructions. Then, if you imagine, like I said before, you go to Federer, you've done all the checking up, you've looked at all the research, you've looked at his qualities, and you've signed up for the next 10 years, and then he tells you what to do, and you start saying, well, what do you mean? Why can't I do it this way? No, then that would be foolish, wouldn't it? Why bother asking him to teach you if you're not going to see him as the best tennis player and have a very open mind to his instructions and trust him? Do you understand?
Yes, more or less. Okay.
What do you mean? You always say that, Samuel. What do you mean more or less, baby? Come on, I said it so clearly. What's your problem with that? Ask me a question, what I just said. How do you know what I just said?
Who is Federer? Is it
Roger Federer is a Swiss famous, worldwide, super famous tennis player, baby. Maybe they don't play tennis in Israel, I don't know. Anyway, is Roger Federer a famous tennis player?
So what you're saying in secular terms mean that you see the guru you chose as a representation of the ideal tennis player.
That's exactly right, honey. 100% for your answer. Yes. Okay. But this gets difficult because let's say you're in a bad mood one morning and then Federer tells you 7 times you did it wrong. You're going to get upset. I tried so hard and he criticizes me. Your poor little ego gets upset. But if you really trust Federer, like I really trusted Mr. Lee and he screamed at me, I always had to know he wanted to give me his kung fu because he saw I was sincere. So I was honored when he shouted at me. I kind of give you an example. You understand my point?
Okay. Yes.
You hear my point? And that's difficult, Samuel, because we're all very sensitive. We've got egos, So that simple example of Lama Zopa ignoring me, that could be considered very bad manners. He was so rude. How could he ignore me? How could he be a Buddha, Because my ego got offended. But if I trust, and so that's the difference. My mother's expertise was cakes. Federer's expertise is tennis. But the Buddhist guru's expertise is the actual workings of the mind. And that means they see your mind exactly. So Lama Zopa knew even before I even walked in the room, he knew I was just wasting time. I didn't need to have a meeting with him. And I trusted that. You get my point here?
Yeah.
So you've got to cultivate that confidence because it doesn't come naturally. Because we want to be stroked and someone smile at us all the time. I mean, Lama Yeshe was really rough with me. Lama Yeshe as well. He was rough with me. But I knew it was a perfect teaching for me. It was exactly what I needed. You with me?
Yeah, but in practical terms, most people that we meet, someone can even have lots of good qualities and a few bad ones.
What's the point? I don't get the point.
So if you make, okay, I just don't really know how to really test a teacher, because even a highly realized teacher can have just a few bad qualities.
I know, but so then your question is, because here, okay, I haven't spelled it out, but let me now spell it out. And this is the part that's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The goal, especially in the Vajrayana teachings, the goal is to develop the view that that person in a human body looking like you and me, you have chosen that person to be the ideal Buddha, which means they're perfect, which means they don't have mistakes, which means everything they think and do and say can only be for your benefit. That's the part that's hard, Samuel, because we like to find fault. That's the part that's hard. So, so we need to really be confident that that person is the one we want to teach us. And therefore and then we gradually cultivate this view that that guru is the human manifestation of a Buddha to show me how to become a Buddha, which means everything they think and do and say is only for my benefit. That's the tricky part that we find very difficult. You with me?
Okay, I need to think of it.
Of course you do. We all do. Believe me, honey, you hit the nail on the head. This part is really difficult. So let's look at the logic of this, Samuel. I'll just talk to everybody in general now. Let's look at the logic of this point. I'll give you an example. I have many teachers I consider my guru. I've chosen, and one of my first gurus was one particular Lama who's now given up the Dalai Lama, gone against the Dalai Lama, and started his own organization. Some of you might have heard of it, the New Kadampa tradition, and the Geshe is called Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. He was one of my gurus. I took an empowerment from him. I chose him as one of my gurus, which means I decided I would see him as the Buddha. Mm-hmm. So then it gets quite complicated, doesn't it? Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa's center was this center in Manjushri Institute in England. That was Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe's center. They invited Geshe Kelsang Gyatso to be the resident teacher. Then this schism happened, and then Geshe Kelsang Gyatso took the center, and his students went off with him, and then Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa gave up this center. So basically, that's really quite complicated, Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe, my main gurus, they invited Geshe-la. Then I took him as one of my teachers. I took an empowerment, which meant I committed to seeing him as a Buddha. And then he seems to be doing, and this is not criticizing him, this is fact, he took the center. That's a fact, that's not a criticism. So how am I supposed to think about that then? How can I say to yourself, well, he took my own gurus, one of my gurus' centers, and he's criticized the Dalai Lama. How can I say I can still see him as the Buddha? This gets difficult. So let's now discuss it. Mute yourself, Samuel, we'll just talk to everybody in general. Okay, good. This is the part that's really hard for us in the West. We find it very difficult to navigate mentally, but there's logic to it. There's incredible logic to it. Okay, in general, you could say one way of saying what we're trying to do as a Buddhist is every day get less attachment, less anger, less depression, less anxiety, less low self-esteem, less criticism, less negative, in other words. That's by definition what we're trying to do, and therefore more wise, more clear, more virtuous, more positive. That's finally culminating in Buddha, where you've rid the mind of all the rubbish and you've perfected all the goodness. That's your job, day by day by day. So I have some facts here. Geshe Kelsang Gyatso took Manjushri Institute, basically, speaking simply, from Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa. Geshe Kelsang Gyatso has criticized His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and and all the years and years and years demonstrated that His Holiness's teaching, so on and so forth, gone against His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now that's a fact. That's a fact. So then you say, well, Rabina, you're seeing Geshe Kelsang Gyatso as the Buddha, and I'll say yes. Well, how can you do that? Look what he's just done. Look, he's gone against His Holiness. He's taken Lama Yeshe Center. How could you possibly see he's a Buddha? So this is where you have to study the teachings. We don't do this, and we're so naive, When we the very first level of practice is the Hinayana level. You don't steal, you don't kill, you don't lie, you don't do naughty things. You control your body, you control your speech, you live in vows, and you subdue your behavior, and you live in vows. That's the very first level of practice. Now, the next level, on the basis of that, you're going to see stealing and stealing right there. This Lama took that center. That sounds like stealing. then you can say, well, how is that the behavior of a Buddha? Well, you can't say it is, because it's not. But go to the next level, and this is the point. The next level of the teachings is the Bodhisattva path. The Bodhisattva path is outrageous. We think, oh, it's all lovely, compassion, love, blah, blah, blah. Bodhisattva path scares the life out of me. I'd rather talk about emptiness all day. But bodhicitta is unbelievable. So the logic of the Bodhisattva path, you get to a certain point, you don't, even before you're a Buddha, you don't need to get reborn. You do not need to get reborn at a certain stage of your development on the Bodhisattva path. But out of compassion, you will consciously take bodies. Now, you can't see who anybody is. You can be manifesting as some old homeless person. You can manifest as some ugly bloke down the road. You can manifest as some kind of warrior. You know, because the point is, if you can consider that it is possible to rid the mind of all delusions, and it is possible to have a powerful wisdom and incredible compassion, then the Bodhisattva path enables you to do whatever needs to be done to benefit sentient beings in the way they need. There's this lovely story. When my mother met Lama Yeshe, you know, my mother met Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, and my mother was very proud. I love my mother. She had 7 children. I just love my mother. She's dead now. But she was very proud, and so she loved Lama Zopa. So she didn't mind that Zopa, because Zopa looked kind of humble, you know. But that Yeshe, she couldn't cope with that Yeshe, because he made her nervous. So she had a meeting with Lama Yeshe years ago in Australia. And she came, and she just with her. And she came out of the meeting, and I could feel she was very moved by him in her heart, but she was really upset with him. She said to me, he kept looking at the television while I was talking, you know. So and then she talked to my friend Adele House, who wrote the book Big Love, you know, that biography of Lama Yeshe. Well, Adele House and I went to the Sacré-Cœur nuns, the French nuns. We both went to school together. We met years later because we were students of Lama Yeshe. So my mother and Adele House were good friends. They drink sherry and gossip, you know. And so that Adele would tell me, oh, your mother would say, oh, that Yeshe, that Yeshe. And I was worried, oh my God, she's criticizing a Buddha, you know. So anyway, I heard this wonderful story about this bodhisattva. So bodhisattvas, the point is they don't walk around with halos. They take any damn form they need to go from life to life to life. And what they're doing is they're developing, becoming a Buddha. Each life they're getting better and better, more powerful, more wise, more compassionate. They will take any body that's necessary. There are 10 stages before, you know, once you've realized emptiness, there are 10 stages or 10 bhumis, they call it, that finally culminate in being a Buddha. The lowest level bodhisattva has so much power that they're able to manifest their mind in 100 different bodies simultaneously. They could be a dog, they could be a rat, they could be a murderer, because their mind is completely beyond delusions. I mean, not totally till they're Buddha, but they're pretty high bodhisattvas, and they will take any form that's necessary to connect with sentient beings. You would never recognize them, you know. So this particular story I heard after this business with my mother, this is one dude, one bodhisattva, bopping through life after life. And one of the key jobs for bodhisattvas, and listen to this, it's very logical, is to connect with sentient beings, to make eyeball contact. They need a karmic connection. Because if you don't have a karmic connection with somebody, you'll never, ever recognize them again. So this, you know, these bodhisattvas, they want to lead us all to enlightenment right now. But if we're not ready, what are they going to do? They can't leave us behind. So they make a karmic connection. And then 27 lives later, when you're ready, you'll meet them again and they'll lead you to enlightenment. I mean, why do you think millions of us adore His Holiness? We think we're so clever that we can recognize a Buddha. Don't be ridiculous. He has hooked us personally, life after life. The millions of humans adore him. He has hooked each one of us eyeball to eyeball personally using peaceful methods. Because if we think he's cute and lovely, that shows he's used peaceful methods. For Chinese, he must have used very unpeaceful methods. They can't stand the sight of him, but he got him. He's got him. So this story of this bodhisattva, he was in some village and he'd connected with everybody in the village, but except for one old lady. And no matter what he did, she didn't connect. And he couldn't leave her behind. He had to make a karmic connection. So when she's ready, 57 lives, whatever, he'll lead her to enlightenment. They've got long-term view, these dudes, okay? So he couldn't leave her behind. So he discovered she had this beautiful garden. So he rode his horse through her garden, destroying it. Well, honey, now she noticed him, shouting and yelling and shaking her fist. And he was so happy. He got her. And as the Lama who told the story said, this is saying in Tibetan, when it comes to bodhisattvas, it's better to have a bad connection with them than to have no connection. So he was delighted. Now, I mean, so the Dalai Lama is a wonderful story about His Holiness. Wait a minute, which one was I telling you? My mother, that was, oh yeah, so I thought about my mother, then Lama must have somehow, the way he behaved, you know, if my mother had sat in that meeting as she usually would, she would have been the boss. And he would have been smiling, yes, dear, no, dear. Well, she wouldn't remember him in her mind, but he was looking at the television and she got so upset because I know that she opened her heart all about me. She never told anybody her problems. Everybody came to her with their problems, but he made her very vulnerable because Lama was very powerful, very charismatic, and she felt really vulnerable. And I know that he got her. He got her. He got her heart. He hooked her. Are we communicating here? So, you know, you don't know who anybody is. I mean, you see that villager, they would have all probably chucked him out of the village. He didn't care. He got this old lady. Bodhisattvas are so courageous. They have no worry about what people think about them. And because they're beyond ego or whatever level there are, they will do whatever it takes to hook sentient beings. It's a lovely story I always tell about Lama Yeshe. At our monastery, Kopan, Harry, this American fellow, back there in the late 70s, he was helping one of the monks there, one of the Sherpas, who was very sick. What happened? Okay, this monk was very sick, and Harry had found a doctor to help the monk. And he happened to mention to Lama Yeshe, I found this doctor for that monk. And Lama said, you don't need a doctor, let it be. So Harry didn't do anything more, and Harry observed the monk got sicker and sicker. He went up to the mountains to his family, and he finally died. Well, that sounds like Lama Yeshe is very cruel. But as Lama Lundup, the abbot, told Harry, well, you know, Lama's clairvoyant, Lama has compassion, Lama has wisdom. He only wants to do the best for this monk. And this is where clairvoyance comes in. I mean, Buddha says you can't begin to benefit sentient beings until you got clairvoyance. That's mystical to us. We've got the ability. So he says, you know, Lama said he could see, Lama Lundup told Harry, Lama Yeshe could see clearly the particular negative karma this monk created, however many lives ago, that is now ripening as this suffering. He could see clearly that if the monk had got a doctor and got better, he would have been fine, this life would have been fine, but he wouldn't have finished this heavy negative karma, and his next life would have been much, much worse. So out of Lama's wisdom and compassion, it was definitely best to allow the monk to continue to get sick and to die young, and he died very well. Because then all the karma was finished and next life would have been perfect. Now, I mean, who has that wisdom? We do not even think like this. And that's this is just the small level wisdom. I mean, Buddhas have infinite compassion, infinite clairvoyance that sees every tiny action of any sentient being. So are perfectly qualified to do what is most beneficial for that sentient being. So when you don't understand those teachings, if you can't understand those teachings, how this is possible, then it's impossible to think that someone, for example, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso, his action, there's no way you can imagine to see his actions as appropriate. So what's the thinking here? I had decided he was my guru. I took an empowerment from him. I then observed he went against my other lamas and he went against His Holiness. So then this is the point. I said to myself, am I clairvoyant? No. Can I say with certainty that Geshe Kelsang Gyatso is not a Buddha? Can I say with certainty that Geshe Kelsang Gyatso is not a Buddha? And the answer is no. Well, that's the end of the discussion. So what do? I leave it there. I decided already he was a Buddha. I continued to think he was a Buddha, even though it looked very distressing what happened, because I'm not clairvoyant. So I leave it there. I say he is a Buddha and he is doing what is most beneficial for his disciples. That's the first point. Second, also the really powerful view, everything we see, everything that we experience, as Lama Zopa puts it, is our own karmic appearance. So what I saw was disharmony. Lama Zopa told us right at the time this big thing happened back in 1983. This big schism at this center was like a war zone. It was the most painful experience. He said to us then, this schism is the result of the students collectively breaking our third root tantric vow in past lives, speaking the faults of our Vajra brothers and sisters. So due to the collective karma, all these hundreds of people, of our own past disharmony, what we saw, what that disharmony manifested as karma was a war. a schism, and that's the thing. If we don't understand karma, and that whatever we see is the result of our own past actions, and if we don't understand how bodhisattvas and Buddhas can do actions that seem negative but can be coming from wisdom, then this is like a nightmare experience for people. And this is why most people don't study the teachings, is I have no way of understanding when you see some guru do something naughty, you can't put it in, you can't work it out, you know. So we have to hear the teachings and understand the logic of these teachings. Then it's comfortable. Even a more fundamental way to put it is this. At the time of Geshe Kosang Gyatso taking that center, I had two choices. One was to leave it there, have no opinion, because I wasn't qualified to have an opinion, I'm not clairvoyant, or to find fault. Now think about this. Think about this. What would be better for my mind? To get angry, to get upset, to get resentful, or to be peaceful and virtuous and keep my mind protected? It's obvious. So, but our trouble is in the West, we think we have to have an opinion about every damn thing that goes on. We rant and rave and scream and yell and criticize, and we believe in our own karmic appearances. We have no wisdom, and we make a complete mess of our own minds and all go crazy. So for us in the West, this sounds like you're just avoiding things. But from the Buddhist point of view, you can't be more accurate. You want to protect your own for no other reason, even if don't worry about the guru devotion one. Don't even worry about that. But what do I want to do with my mind? I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be resentful. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to find fault. I will go crazy. I want my mind to be pure, clear, virtuous, and wise. So it's a no-brainer from that point alone. Let it be there. Mind your own damn business. But that's really not comfortable. We love being political activists in our culture, you know. So I think I need you to ask questions now. This is really quite interesting.
We have a question in the chat box. Jane, did you want to ask, or would you like me to read it?
Sure, I can do it. Sure.
Good.
Jane, yes.
For me, I feel I'm still at that first step that you discussed at the last session, deciding if you want to study
That's right.
and devote
Perfect.
yourself to Buddhism.
Yeah.
I was raised as a Jodo Buddhist.
Oh, that's
so
it. Tell me, that's Japanese style, is it?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
it's like
good.
a Japanese American
Yeah,
style Buddhism.
okay,
It's
okay.
little, it's very a lot on tradition
Yeah,
and a lot
yeah.
of ancestral, and
Yes.
karma is kind of predetermined for you, and there's not a lot you can do in this
Right,
life to
I
change it.
understand. That's interesting. Yes.
Yeah, it's a little different, but I
It is,
still
yes.
find things in that resonate with me.
Yes.
Things that come from the Vietnamese tradition with Thich Nhat Hanh, I find
Yes.
helps me a lot too.
Yes.
But hearing you speak, hearing like Venerable Children speak, it's the first time the Buddhism for me kind of makes sense on a
That's
day-to-day
interesting, isn't it?
basis.
Yes, it's because
Yeah.
it's sort of more the philosophical approach, all the background to it. That's interesting, Jane. So, honey,
Right.
child, you just keep moving. You're doing
Okay.
exactly the right.
So I feel for
Yes.
me at this point, it's premature to start
That's
looking
right.
for a guru.
Exactly.
Okay.
Perfect. Totally. You've got to go at your own pace, Jane. That's my
Okay,
point
great.
about Lama Zopa. I mentioned it briefly. It took me 10 years to realize if what was in my dream 10 years before was in fact true, but I had to catch up with my own reality. So I had to go at my own pace. Lama Zopa must have known. He didn't push. He just relaxed, you know, cracked jokes. Do you understand? It was interesting.
Yes.
It took me 10
Yes.
years for the realization to go from my head to my heart, you know?
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
cannot go at anybody else's pace than our own, Jane. We've got to be
Okay, great.
authentic in that way.
Okay.
And
Thank you very much.
it's wonderful, Jane. You keep moving, girl. It's great.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Good. Who else?
Good.
Tara.
We have another question. Christy, would you like to ask?
Yes, Christine.
Would you like me to read it?
Well, you have talked a lot about how rough your gurus have been with you, and I wondered, is this a standard method, or
I really find it hard to hear you. The sound isn't so good, Christy, and I'm missing half of what you say, sweetheart. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
If need, no,
Keep
I
talking,
can
though.
read.
No,
I
I
can-
want Christy to talk. Talk, Christy. I'll try and hear you, darling. Please talk.
Well, I've had problems with sound before because of Windows.
Okay,
Can you
now
hear
I can
me
hear
at
better
all?
now. I can hear you better now, darling. It's good.
Oh, okay. All right.
Good. Talk to me.
You've told a lot of stories about your gurus being rough with you and saying that you needed that. Does this mean that the guru tailors their approach according to the student? Does every guru use these rough methods with every student, or does it depend on the student?
I totally understand, Chrissy. It's a really good question. I mean, I sort of always tell some of these examples. I don't mean to exaggerate, because I mean, it was only a few examples, and most of the time I experience them as totally kind and empathetic, and you understand there's no question about it. So I use those examples often just to make a point. So, I mean, I've got a friend who's also a student of Lama Yeshe, and he's known him longer than I have. And he said he's never seen him raise his voice. He's always sweet and gentle. So I really do feel, I mean, I think if you were a parent, it'd be the same. You treat each child according to their needs, you know. Some child can be disciplined, another child can't. If you've got any wisdom, you know that you'd be appropriate. I think even a school teacher would be like that. I mean, Mr. Lee, my Kung Fu teacher, and he wasn't anybody special, you know, I'm not talking about him being spiritual, but even just ordinary that, I think very much it's tailored to the person's needs. Absolutely, I accept that, yes. But that's why, Christy, what my main point here is, you know, is that if I'm going to be confident, I have to be confident. Even Mr. Lee, a Kung Fu teacher, for God's sake, I'm not talking spiritual terms. I did do my due diligence. I checked up on his classes. I went to his classes. I saw how he taught, and he really impressed me. So then I had confidence that he knew his Kung Fu. And I even saw with his kids' classes, he really was wonderful with the kids. So for me, that was a good example to show that his heart was in it and he cared about his disciples. So when he did shout at me, I wasn't offended, because I knew it wasn't just coming from some, I mean, he might have been a regular guy spiritually. I'm not saying like that, but even I often read about, you know, people, coaches, football coaches. So people adore their football coach, even though they scream and yell at them. So you've got to have this relationship where you trust that process. I
do understand that, having been a soldier. I understand.
That's interesting. No, that's interesting. What did you say? You've been a soldier?
Yeah.
Well, you'd really understand it, honey. Oh my God, Christy, more than anybody. I mean, I bet you could tell us some marvelous stories about that. I mean, you see all these cliched bits on movies, but I can really understand. And that's a very, very good example. Because I especially can imagine in a war environment, if you didn't have total trust, the whole team collapses. That's a really interesting example, Christine. What did you do? What were you, in the Army, in the Navy? What were you?
Army.
For many years?
10.
Were you one of the bosses or one of the workers?
Well, both.
Oh, were you really? Oh, that's interesting. So you know very well then. Were you a tough boss, a kind boss, a soft boss?
Kind.
There you go. How kind. Well done, Chrissy. That's a perfect example. Then, honey, you really understand. But you know, you can see it even when it's, I mean, you know, that even that let's say whoever your boss was in the Army, maybe he was, you know, he smoked too many cigarettes, but you didn't care about that. It was the job that he did that he was excellent. Mr. Lee might have been a bit hopeless and maybe he cheated on his wife. I don't care. I wanted his Kung Fu, you know. So, but a spiritual teacher, I mean, ethics is their main thing. They've got to have good ethics. So that's a really important one, isn't it? That's very helpful, Christine. Thank you for that. That's wonderful, in fact. Who else, people?
Yes, Judy, you said you had a question, another?
Good. Go, Judy.
Hi, Venerable.
Judy.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I can, sweetheart.
Wonderful. So I think you already answered a part of my question about picking a spiritual teacher by going to their classes, listening to them, how they think about things. I was wondering if personal resonance with the story, like your life story and my life story, kind of match. Is that good? Because I've been listening to you for a while now, and I feel that there is similarity in like certain aspects of our like youth, if you want to call it that.
I do. No, that is a major point. I mean, I know for me, Lama Yeshe, Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe, who both my lamas, they're very different in their aspect. And so because I have to edit their teachings, it's very intimate. So Lama Yeshe, always his way of talking really resonated with me. I mean, his life is different from mine, but his way of seeing things, his way of conceptualizing, that I recognize in my own mind. So that's a very valid point. Absolutely. That can be very helpful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, darling.
What about events, certain events of our lives?
I think that's just probably, maybe, you know, we've been through similar experiences. That's all. Probably that.
Experiences, that's what I meant.
I'd say,
yes.
exactly.
Okay.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That helps.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Difficult questions, problem questions.
We have Mark next.
Good, Mark. Talk to me, darling.
Thanks, Venerable Rubina. Just thinking about Kelsang Gyatso, the story you told about that, and that got me thinking about Chogyam Trungpa and his son Sakyam Mipam, and I mean I think he's acknowledged abusing people. So
which one, the son or who?
The son, I think.
Oh, I see. He. What you mean sexually, jumping on the girl?
Yeah. So how should we view that? I mean, should we look at that as, oh, he may be a bodhisattva just trying to connect with people? Or
if, Mark, if you have decided that he is one of your lamas, you don't have to have that view. People who talk about Geshe Kelsang Gyatso, he's not their teacher, they can think what they like. But because I committed to him, to see him as the Buddha, I need to keep my mind really clear, and not kind of get conflicted. So I think if he's your teacher, of course, there's no question about it. It's the easiest thing. But I even remember reading about Trungpa even before I was a Buddhist. And I remember after I was a Buddhist, and then one of his, that woman, that nun, who's one of his main disciples, she teaches. So that I find is a very interesting example. There she is, this impeccable, ethical nun. You can't find any fault in her behavior. And if her lama is this wacko guy called Trungpa, then that gives you something, well, that's interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? So even looking at the disciples, if there's good quality disciples, that I think is a really interesting point to look at, to judge a person, isn't it? Do you see my point? But of course, if he's one of your teachers, and when you understand how it's possible, this is my whole point, if we don't understand the Bodhisattva teachings, and this is not possible, then it's very confusing. It's very, I mean, that story about that guy running through the garden, you know, I mean, it's just, we can't cope with it if we don't, because we tend, with our narrow-minded view of ego grasping, we see everything through the lenses of our own delusions, and we assume what we see is the truth. So we've got, one of the first things we have to realize here is that, you know, we don't have wisdom. You know, we've got to recognize that possibility that we're not wise enough to see the truth. And I think that's a very humbling point, and that can be, do you understand?
I do. I guess what I'm struggling with is you could see someone doing hurting someone, harming someone. Mm-hmm. And if he or she's my guru, I might be able to view it, okay, well, I need to maintain my view. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, I think I need to do something about it.
No, see, that's what's interesting. It doesn't contradict. There's no contradiction there, Mark. That's where, I mean, you know, if you really have the purest Buddhist view and you see one guy beating up a dog, if you could, instead of saying, well, it could be the Buddha, so let him beat up the dog. No, but with part of your mind thinking, well, you never know, it could be, but you still act according to the world and you try to get the guy to stop kicking the dog. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you had the wisdom, like Lama Yeshe's story, Lama could see with his clairvoyance and this monk, it's better he didn't get a doctor. If you've got that wisdom, then you wouldn't intervene. But given that we don't have that wisdom, we act according to the laws of the world with the purest motivation. I think it doesn't contradict.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, makes sense.
Who was it? I saw one hand.
It was Wolfgang.
Oh, I see. Wolfgang, are you there?
Go ahead.
Yes, hello, Venerable Rubina.
Talk to me, my dear.
I have exactly the same question. I completely understand if you don't have clairvoyance, you cannot tell good from bad. Impossible.
Let us start again, Wolfgang. It's not so clear.
If you don't have clairvoyance, it's impossible to distinguish between good and bad.
Exactly. It's impossible, yes.
And now I have the same question. So it will lead me to some kind of passivity, to get passive.
I understand. So that's why I say it's really important. Yeah. When you see the ordinary world, you act according to the laws of the world. If you see somebody abusing somebody, if you can intervene, please intervene. But you'd have part of your mind, because you'd want, I mean, that's perfectly, it's not contradicted by this. It's not some fundamentalist idea. No, you wouldn't become passive. You'd become compassionate and you would do what you can to help people. There's no contradiction.
But I feel like I'm losing a little bit the compass. What is good? What is bad? What is right? What is wrong?
No, this is an interesting point. No, this is the interesting point. The very first level of the teachings, which is the pratimoksha level, the individual liberation, the hinayana level, don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't this, don't that. Very precise, very clear, perfect ethics. That never changes, Wolfgang. That never changes. Always the best behavior. So a perfect guru, like let's say the Dalai Lama is said to be a good example. So externally, he has perfect behavior. Internally, he is a bodhisattva. Secret, he is a tantric yogi. So according to other people's, to his disciples, he will show those different aspects. But being a tantric yogi or being even a bodhisattva who can ride his horse through some old lady's garden, totally out of compassion, it looks like bad behavior. You are right, but still that doesn't deny that bad behavior is wrong. It's just according to a person's capability. So if it's your guru, you attempt to have a pure view and assume they're doing it for the benefit of others. But also on the other hand, if you can intervene, like say on the street or in the traffic or somewhere or next door neighbor, whatever, if you can intervene, and if you think it's appropriate to stop some suffering, then please, you must do it. It doesn't contradict. It doesn't. These 3 levels of teachings, 3 levels of behavior do not contradict each other. And that's often in the West, where there's this naive idea that in Tantra you can do what you like. You know, it's not like that. The only person, quote unquote, who can do what they like is a person who's gone beyond ego and who has powerful wisdom. But from our side, you see the other interesting point, Wolfgang. Like, let's say, I mean, you're an IT guy, you've got knowledge about IT. I haven't got a clue. So if I hear you telling a person about IT, imparting your knowledge, I have no ability to judge whether you're speaking right or wrong. So that's a fact. So I have to mind my own business. Exactly the same. If I don't see your mind, and you might be a bodhisattva, and you are abusing somebody, I might still intervene, but I have to have part of my mind think maybe Wolfgang knows what he's doing. So it's not a comfortable one for the West because we're very political and we believe in what we see. We believe everything. Yep. We're right. We believe things. We're very narrow-minded. So it's a big mind, this one, but it doesn't contradict behaving properly. I remember one Lama in one tradition, he was accused of jumping on his disciples or something, you know. And there was a lot of his students got really upset. And then the boss in that organization, one of the lamas, one of my lamas, he was very clear. You know, he knows this guy's mind. He knows this other lama's mind. He was the boss. And he said, well, you know, given that he behaved wrongly, he should behave properly, then you don't invite him anymore to teach. He treated it like a very simple level. He didn't give all the tantric answer. He gave a very simple, basic level. Because I think in the West, and that's what we need. We need people to behave nicely. I mean, the Dalai Lama is a great example because it's a relief to have a person who is valid and sincere and authentic, you know. I mean, you know, for example, if you read all the biographies of the Dalai Lamas, there are 14 of them, they've all been published. And the 6th Dalai Lama is famous for being outrageous behavior. There's a lovely story. The 5th Dalai Lama died, but all these Dalai Lamas, they're like the politics, they have their own administration. And the 5th Dalai Lama died most inconveniently in the middle of when they were building the Potala, that big building in Lhasa, you know. And so his administration pretended that the 5th Dalai Lama was in retreat for several years until they finished the Potala. Then they announced that he was dead. Well, by that time, the 6th Dalai Lama had already been born and he hadn't been recognized formally. So he sort of became a naughty boy and he didn't want to be a monk. He'd hang out with the prostitutes. He wrote love poetry. But the Tibetans have such total confidence that they didn't care. They knew he was the Buddha. But I always joke and say, imagine if Dalai Lama disrobed and got a 16-year-old girlfriend. 90% of the Westerners would give him up. Because we need this. We're so berserk. We need a nice, good example. That's why for me, I'm so grateful to have Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa, who are impeccably behaved. I don't know how I'd handle it if my main Lama acted like Trungpa, you know. So we need this kind of solid, on the ground, good behavior. It's important. Are we communicating, Wolfgang?
Thank you very much.
Good, good, good. Thank you. What else, darling people? Any more questions?
Right now, no more in the chat box.
Okay.
Any other question?
What is there? Yes, tell me.
Okay.
I can see this is the last class we're going to have too, because you've got the next week off next week. All I'm relying upon you guys is to study those course notes, please. And if you really can, also study Lama Zopa's book, The Heart of the Path. You couldn't get a better one on classical approach to guru devotion. But I'm trying to, by the way, I'm trying to get to the essence of it experientially and trying to give some kind of And yeah, and again, I think I want to repeat what I said last time, I think. But somehow, for me, the part of the relationship, forget about all these strange ways of not believing in, I mean, it's difficult, is that we're all humans. We've got a human heart. And we need to find a person we can feel close to, whom we can trust, who knows our mind to help us guide. Well, I think we need that badly. And to find a person you can have confidence in, who helps you grow spiritually, that's a pretty special gift to have, you know. So I think we need that. Call it guru, call it mentor, I don't care. I find that so powerful, you know.
I have one more question by
Yeah,
Samuel.
Good, Tara.
Samuel, would you like to ask? Do you want me to read it?
Yes, Samuel. Yes, Samuel.
Yeah, so is there a difference between seeing the Guru as the Buddha in the initial level sutra and in the advanced tantra?
Well, yes, absolutely. The different levels of it, there are different levels, but I know that the way Lama Zopa teaches, he always teaches it from the top point of view, you know. He always teaches it like that. There are different levels. There's different very precise requirements at the Hinayana level, the Mahayana level, Sutra level, and the Tantric level, yes. But the way I'm talking about it is a bit similar to the way Lama Zopa talks, because he's my teacher. It's best, the purest view. In other words, the view that we will benefit from. There's no pure view that you get at passing your exams and you're praised. It's the one that benefits us most. And I think this is a point I want to discuss to finish with. Like the example of Geshe Kazan Gyatso. Who is the beneficiary of keeping the mind pure? Me. It doesn't really matter to Geshe Kazan Gyatso whether I think he's evil or think he's pure. I am the beneficiary of having a view that says, I do not know the truth, so I leave it there. And best for my mind to see him as a Buddha who is benefiting his disciples. Now, in our culture, we think that's delusional, because we're very concrete about facts. But the point is, every single step of the way between here and enlightenment, like I said before, my job, our job as disciples, as students, is to develop a virtuous mind, a wise mind, and not to believe in our karmic appearances. When we start to realize this amazing point that Buddha's making, that, you know, things appear to us according to what's in our mind. And we know this. You know people who are really angry, really paranoid, you know, like with constant, really paranoid, really delusional, who are like living in conspiracy theories. I mean, those extreme, crazy QAnon people, they believe in everything they believe in, but we're all doing the same. If you see a person in the street who looks like he looks angry at you, only because you're sensitive, he mightn't even have been looking at you. But in other words, we see everything through the lenses of our own delusions. And when we realize that, we can get a bit humble, you know, and maybe things, the thought is, maybe things don't exist in the way they appear. When we can begin to have that doubt, we're really moving in the right direction, you know. It's a very powerful wisdom, in other words. It's not being naive. It's not being foolish. I mean, the other one is, you know, especially when it's your own Lama, like Lama Zopa ignoring me, or Lama Yeshe shouting at me. I know it was exactly what I needed. Lama Yeshe had this ability. I didn't have many conversations with him, but he would just ask me a question. And somehow it triggered some insight in my mind. It was very powerful, you know. And this is where we have this relationship. We have this relationship with that person, and we're devoted every day and doing our practices and seeing the Buddha as our Lama, then your heart opens hugely and you get so much benefit. I mean, that I can say with certainty. We are the beneficiaries of this practice, you know. We are the beneficiaries. It's got very great meaning. I can only tell you that.
You do have one more question, Cyril?
Absolutely. Yes, Cyril. Yes.
Yes, hi, Venerable. Let me read it because it took me a while to put it into words.
Okay, darling, you read it. Come on.
So I feel that I have a root guru based on the strong connection I have with him, and having followed his teachings in person for a few years when I was living in Singapore. It's Ken Rinpoche.
Good. Yes, absolutely.
I think he knows that I have chosen him as my root guru, but I'm not sure, of course.
Yes.
I'm also very committed to asking him to be my root guru in person.
You must do that, Cyril.
But in the meantime, before I ask him, I don't benefit from his instructions on showing me my mind.
Oh, you
So-
do, darling. No, Cyril, that's the point. Many people even have gurus who are dead, but the same, you get the benefit. There's no question, Cyril. You get the benefit already, but you go ask him. Absolutely. But you are getting the benefit already. Every time you read teachings, you think it's Ken Rinpoche. Every time you see him, you think about, you are the one that nourishes your own mind. Your mind, your faith and devotion is what nourishes your teachings and nourishes your wisdom. You're doing the work, you know. It's sort of, for me, sometimes I think about it, the guru is like just there as an example, and we do all the work, you know. We do all the work. You're doing, it's perfect, Cyril. Totally spot on. Perfect.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Venerable.
What do you think? You agree with me?
Yes, absolutely. So it's
live
okay.
in Singapore?
I just wait to go and see him and ask him personally. And in the meantime, I
You
do
live in
my work.
Singapore? You live in Singapore?
No, right now I'm in Switzerland.
Well, you get a flight and you go to Singapore. Don't you waste time.
Okay.
All right? Come
Okay.
on. No, you just found
I used to
jewel on the
live
planet.
there. That's why. I used to live
Okay,
there.
you go right back and you invite him. 3 prostrations, make a big fat gift, offer a kata, have a few little weeps, and you offer to him. Okay?
Okay.
Good,
Thank
Cyril.
you.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
I think that's a good upbeat point to finish on. So yes, honey, child, I'm cheated you this module, giving you only 2 classes, but please read the teachings. Please think about it. And if you feel you're close to somebody, then in your heart, pray to them, talk to them, and sort of like that's the Buddha for you, and they'll manifest. I mean, you know, yeah, just don't hold back, okay? But be sensible. As Pabonka Rinpoche says, you better choose your guru very carefully because you're going to end up like them. That's my favorite saying from Pabonka. All right, darlings. Have a lovely Christmas. Whatever you do for Christmas, I don't know. I have no idea. But I'm in Rome, and my 77th birthday is on the 20th. I'm going to celebrate my 77th birthday. Sounds hilarious.
Happy birthday.
I know, I'm have a happy birthday. And I'll be in France for Christmas. If France let me in, they're closing their borders now. It's looking a bit nerve-wracking. We'll see how it goes. Okay, darlings, I'll see you after Christmas, and we'll carry on. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you,
Much love.
Venerable.
Jangshor,
you.
Semchog Rinpoche, Ma ke panam ke gyu chig, ke pa nyampa me pa yang gong ne gondu pava shog. So that compassion, bodhicitta, grow and grow in the hearts of all, and never give up, and maybe never develop even for a moment wrong views towards the deeds of our most precious gurus, with faith and respect gained from seeing their goodness. May their full inspiration flow into our hearts. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, darlings. Much love. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Yuval. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Sweethearts. Bye.